Welcome to @Cronkite News, your social sharing connection where you choose the news. Facebook likes and shares, tweets, retweets, and favorites. YouTube views and subscriptions. We're watching you watch us. From our digital home at cronkitenews.azpbs.org to your television, web browser, or mobile device. Let's get a refresh on the top Arizona news of the week.
2018 is just around the corner, which means it's time to think re-election for Senator Jeff Flake, as well as all Arizona's representatives in the U.S. House. Reporter Drew Marine shows us what several of those soon-to-be candidates face from their constituents.
Backlash isn't anything Senator Jeff Flake hasn't taken before, especially for his views on the most controversial issues. And one of the topics that earns him critics is his opposition to the American Health Care Act. Flake says that repealing Obamacare is in the best interest of Arizonans, and that as a Republican, he is trying his best to offer a different plan.
The state of Arizona has been ground zero for the failure of the Obamacare exchange. In every county in Arizona, a family of 4 is paying more for their health care premium than they are for their mortgage.
He's not the only one who received cheers and jeers on that subject. So did Republican Congressman Andy Biggs from District 5.
We've been working on the Obamacare repeal as promised. There's not a Republican who ran who did not promise to repeal Obamacare.
Both Biggs and Flake took questions from the audience. When confronted with issues about women's reproductive rights, immigration policies, and school funding, Senator Jeff Flake answered with roundabout answers that included, "I'm sorry, we disagree." And even though Flake received many boos, one supporter says Senator Flake is doing his best to represent all Arizonans.
He cannot make everyone happy, but he must do something that benefits most of the people. Some people might not be happy with that, but he's trying his best.
Taking a different tack, Democratic Congressman Ruben Gallego focused on one specific group at the event he hosted in Spanish, those dealing with immigration and the fear of deportation.
A direct consequence of a really bad rollout that the president had when it came to executive orders. And this is why we're having these types of events to try to bring a little more stability to the community right now so they don't believe in just all these whispers that are going out there.
A common theme at all of these events, a feeling of civic responsibility from the constituents.
Why aren't you listening to us?
In Mesa, Drew Marine, Cronkite News.
The Department of Homeland Security is reviewing proposals from more than 300 companies who want to build or design the new border wall. I talked to a Tempe company that placed a bid.
CMJ Systems is one of 22 Arizona companies that submitted a bid to build or design the new border wall.
We've identified a whole different approach in being able to have a strength for a wall that's not going to be subject to the inherent problems of steel reinforcement.
He argues that his idea would be more effective than the current border fence and hopes the design for a so-called green wall will set the company apart. The idea is to use layers of recycled carpet to reinforce the concrete wall. He says the material is more sustainable and durable.
Some of our preliminary testing has already proven that it is much more dense, it's much more stronger, and we feel that even from having explosive devices set up against it, it will outperform what would be your typical tilt-up structure.
The company president also estimates it would be more cost-effective to build a wall by using repurposed materials.
I think that the Department of Homeland Security has to consider all options. They would not be good stewards of the taxpayers' money to not look at alternatives that would be about half the cost.
The Department of Homeland Security is expected to announce the finalists in June. Then the selected prototypes will be built in San Diego.
It's a golfing program that teaches life lessons on and off the court. Reporter McKenna Delgarno learned how the first tee of Phoenix makes an impact on Arizona students.
It's called The First Tee, a program that teaches leadership values through the game of golf.
First Tee has just really impacted my life a lot, especially for my family. My mom's just been the only one to primarily raise me.
Gabriel has been a member of First Tee of Phoenix for 2 years now. He says he's learned important life lessons.
One of my favorite core values is perseverance. I know sometimes if I come out here having a bad day, it's just terrible. I get a little angry with myself, but I know I have to persevere and try my best.
With locations all across the United States, the chapter here in Phoenix has reached more than 100,000 kids through their in-school program.
The program is adopted by the school district, basically, and it's put into their physical education curriculum. So we teach them things like honesty, integrity, respect, sportsmanship.
Kevin Terry says once students are introduced to the program at their school, some eventually become members. However, there are challenges with being able to afford the in-school program.
You have to purchase the equipment, and if you go into a school district where you have, 30, 40 plus schools, that it can add up.
It's a hole-in-one for the First Tee of Phoenix, who received a $500,000 donation from a donor who remains anonymous. Terry says they plan to use the money to buy equipment for their in-school program and offer scholarships for their after-school program, all in hopes to reach more kids like Gabriel.
All the friends that I've made and all the coaches that are kind of like my dads, because I'm with them so much. It's been a great experience for me.
In the last 2 years, 14 members have earned college scholarships, but Terry says the most important part is seeing a positive growth in their lives. In Mesa, McKenna Delgarno, Cronkite News.
The First Tee of Phoenix has 15 locations throughout the valley. They also work with organizations like the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club.
Arizona is known for cotton and citrus, but these aren't the only abundant crops growing in the state. Last year, Arizona exported 18 million rose bushes and continues to be a leader in the industry. Reporter Kanakja tells us more about the national flower growing in our state.
When you think roses, you probably think California. Desert dwellers might be surprised to learn rose growing in the state goes back to the 1950s. I took a trip out to Litchfield Park to learn more about the current industry.
Blistering summer heat is headed our way, but that doesn't stop the roses in Arizona from blooming. Noelle Johnson is dedicated to finding the perfect desert rose.
So the roses I have in my garden are put here to see how do they do, and then the growers ask me for my feedback. So one of the most exciting things for me is getting free roses in the mail, and I put them in my garden and see what happens.
Growers around the world ask Johnson to test rose variations for durability in the desert heat. We might not think roses will last here, but Tyler Francis says the climate is perfect.
We grow over 1,000 different varieties of rose bushes on this farm, and of that we have 50 different reds. So there's a lot of different variations, and the best thing to do is the one that draws you in is the one that you should buy.
Francis Roses is one of 4 commercial rose growers in the state. In December, Francis will ship out about 5 million bushes.
The roses that Arizona ships out accounts for about 3/4 of the U.S. rose bush market. But these aren't the flowers that you would see in your Valentine's Day bouquet.
Stem-cut roses are imported from overseas and might last you 2 weeks. But in Arizona, planting a rose bush that blooms almost year-round is easy.
Roses get a bad rap for being finicky, but they're not. They're very, very hardy plants. If you give them just a little bit of love and attention and you water them, you don't need to be a pro.
Francis says the rosebush industry is worth about $500 million and is a significant part of the state's agriculture.
I would really like to see the 5 Cs in an R, because we are the cornerstone of the entire rose industry here in Arizona, and I think it's something that all Arizonans should be proud of.
As for Johnson, she says we can show our pride by getting out our gardening gear.
Grow roses, life is short.
So far this year, Arizona has exported 6 million rose bushes. Rose growers say they've seen the growing process become more streamlined and expect more consolidation in the industry in the next few years. In the newsroom, Kanakja, Cronkite News.
A bill supported by Senator John McCain is looking to replace your dollar bills with dollar coins. Our reporter Zi Zeng has the story from Washington.
I think Congress to former Arizona Representative Jim Colby and others in the Senate briefing today, turning dollar bills into coins makes more sense.
That the dollar coin is good for taxpayers, consumers, businesses, and the environment.
According to a 2012 report by the Government Accountability Office, the switch would save the government over $150 million per year. Besides, Thomas Schatz says it's also good for the environment.
Each year, approximately 3.2 billion $1 bills are sent to landfills, where they create millions of pounds of unnecessary waste, while the coins are 100% recyclable.
Aaron Klein, former Deputy Assistant Treasury Secretary, said, "Another big inefficiency in our currency system is the continued production and circulation of pennies."
Penny production is up 58% since 2012. Does anybody in this room need 58% more pennies than you needed 5 years ago? Why are we making these? GAO has estimated that 2/3 of all pennies are out of circulation and sit in jars.
However, Colby said change is not easy.
As I mentioned earlier, there's the inertia factor. People are just, it's hard to get people to change the currency. There are special interests that are involved, those that manufacture the paper that is used in the currency, those that manufacture the metal slugs that are used for pennies, that resist this kind of change.
And Congress is also resistant to change. Jim Colby first introduced a dollar coin bill in 1991. In Washington, D.C., Z-Zone, Cronkite News.
Starbucks and ASU are making higher education more accessible.
Reporter Kennedy Scott explains how employees who didn't meet the academic requirement are now getting the opportunity to earn a degree.
When you see that 1 in 5 of your people aren't qualifying for that opportunity, you really want to do everything that you can to kind of knock down those barriers to admission and open up that opportunity to your people.
Starbucks and Arizona State University formed a partnership 3 years ago, allowing Starbucks employees the opportunity to earn an online degree debt-free. However, the coffee company soon discovered that some employees were unable to participate in the program.
1 in 5 of our employees, our partners, were finding themselves unable to qualify for admission to the university. And so we created a program with ASU's help called Pathways to Admission.
The program works with each employee to help them gain admission to ASU.
There will be individualized programs for students, whether it's helping them to prepare better for testing, whether it's preliminary work on coursework that will help them gain admission. It will really be sort of tailored to the needs of that individual student.
Making higher education more accessible has benefited Starbucks.
It's great for the company. The folks that attend Arizona State and graduate stay twice as long as the rest of our employees do.
Starbucks employee Shane Vance said the Starbucks College Achievement Plan put him on a better path.
I was kind of riding on the fact that I was going to be in debt after I graduated, but I was just accepting that as like a fact of the college experience.
Starbucks employees must work an average of 20 hours a week to participate in the program. Reporting in downtown Phoenix, I'm Kennedy Scott.
About 15,000 employees will be eligible for admission through the new program.
And they will receive partial scholarships and financial aid from ASU, with Starbucks willing to reimburse any remaining fees.
ASU is the first Power 5 school to add a Division I triathlon team. And after just 1 year in existence, the team won a national title and made a huge statement. And as I found out, that's not all that's on the horizon.
Most good things take time, but for the Arizona State women's triathlon team, it didn't take long at all. ASU was one of 8 schools to receive a $140,000 grant from USA Triathlon, making it possible for the team to transition to varsity level in 2015. Just 1 year later, the Sun Devils won the national championship in their first season of competition.
We could have waited a whole other year, built the team, then started our competition for fall 2017, but I guess that's not the way I do things. I like to just throw myself into it.
And the Sun Devils' quick dive into Division I didn't end there. In early April, it was announced that ASU was awarded its bid to host the 2017 National Championship in Tempe.
That's a great honor, and we are really proud to host them here.
We knew we had a good bid. I mean, it's a great location, consistent weather that time of the year.
English said the course is already mapped out here at Tempe Beach Park, already hosting major events such as the Arizona Rock and Roll Marathon and Ironman Arizona every single year. And aside from the weather and the picturesque landscape, the triathletes here at ASU are just excited to have home turf advantage.
It's close, and I mean, I'm excited to have so many people here who cheer for us.
English says the event will also symbolize the growing interest of triathlon in the valley.
It's definitely one of the hotbeds for triathlon, and I definitely hope that we're contributing and growing.
The Sun Devils will host teams from 16 schools across the country, consisting of roughly 65 competitors on November 5th. USA Triathlon previously hosted its collegiate club national championships in Tempe in 2013 and 2014, and ASU won the national championship last year down in New Orleans.
On an average day, nearly 3 people are killed on Arizona roads, according to recent data. Those numbers have been going up over the last few years. Reporter Tyler Fingert has the story from our nation's capital.
The Federal Highway Administration says the number of miles driven on U.S. roads topped 3.2 trillion miles last year. With those extra miles comes a rise in fatal crashes. 2016 was the deadliest year on roads from coast to coast in nearly a decade. The National Safety Council says just over 40,000 people lost their lives.
This is a terrible trajectory for our country, but there are a lot of things that we can do, all of us individually and collectively, to help drive down those numbers.
In 2016, almost 1,000 people died in car crashes throughout Arizona. That's up almost 25% in just 2 years.
Well, unfortunately, the news is not good in Arizona either. And the national average, we went up about 6% in fatal crashes in 2016. In Arizona, that number's 8%.
It's not just a problem in Arizona. Here on the streets of Washington, D.C., the numbers are up as well. And there's concern it could get even worse if drivers continue to drive distracted or speed.
If states crack down on some of the reasons that we see for the most number of fatalities, things like impaired driving or speeding, really could see this number come down a lot.
The Arizona Department of Transportation is pulling the issue into the headlights by using creative freeway signs to highlight the problem. Messages that may be clever enough to grab your attention as the problem continues to head in the wrong direction.
I don't think any of us will ever be satisfied until we reach 0 deaths on our roadways. We can do and we must do much better.
Hope for improvement as a record number of people hit the road. In Washington, Tyler Fingert, Cronkite News.
According to the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, there's been a growth in the number of Latino elected officials in Arizona, a growth that may have to do with demographic changes. Reporter Nicole Gutierrez attended the New Voices Forum and tells us about impact these newly appointed officials have within the Hispanic community.
This week, I attended the New Voices Forum, where the New Voices in office spoke to the community about how they not only serve them, but represent them as well. Newly appointed Arizona officials and representatives came together to discuss what their roles are and what their current and future involvement with the community should be like, especially with the Hispanic community.
I think regardless of the office, that your office should reflect the community you serve.
Representation, immigration, and being open to learn were just some of the things Maricopa County Sheriff Paul Penzone discussed.
He did mention DACA students and undocumented students, so I'm glad that he did that. We understand that he backs us undocumented students, but we'll see if he commits to his word.
Arizona legislators like Gisela LeBlanc says that being elected means more than just serving their community. It means representing them.
This is the first time I ran for elected office. I wanted to really be a representative of the diversity of my community. We're ordinary people who are just trying to continue to work hard and fight for all communities.
Although the panel discussed the willingness to be part of the solution, they say that the lack of community engagement is a recurring problem.
We need more people to actually be involved and get to know their representatives, both at the state legislature or even at the local level.
The forum was open to the public and was hosted at the ASU downtown campus.
I think it's important for students as well as concerned citizens to kind of get ourselves familiarized with our elected officials at a local level.
One of the major objectives of the Arizona Hispanic Chamber of Commerce for this forum and upcoming events is getting the community involved with public policy. If you'd like to know more information, you can go to azhcc.com. In Phoenix, Nicole Gutierrez, Cronkite News.
Governor Doug Ducey recently signed the bill to expand the School Empowerment Scholarship Program, which would offer students funding if they wish to go to private school or be homeschooled. Reporter McKenna Delgarno is live in Phoenix to tell us about the impacts of these ESAs in more rural communities.
Yeah, Danielle, I traveled to 2 communities in eastern Arizona to talk with families on how they feel about the expansion of the school voucher program.
Dress D.
In Thatcher, Arizona, Jenny Bryce is helping her daughter with homework. The mother of 5 says she's uncertain of the future in public education.
I feel like in 20 years, you know, when my grandchildren are going through education, that we'll say, remember when we used to send our kids to public school?
The Bryce family lives in a rural community where there are no private schools in the district. All her children go to public school. She says with the expansion of ESAs, it's going to take away from their local schools.
The fact that we're even having a discussion about, you know, about pulling any kind of money away from public school funding is just kind of a hard pill to swallow.
50 miles west in San Carlos, Jolinda Ben decided to go a different route with her 8 children.
When we had our first child, there was no, I didn't even think about public school for her.
Ben says she chose private school because of religion.
Christian education is what I want for my children.
Her children don't currently get ESAs, but they do get other scholarships.
ESAs are just another way that parents can choose the best education for their children.
Students who are in low-income families will receive 100% of the funds that would have went to their public school.
Parents can choose to spend their ESA funds on either private school tuition or approved fees. Some of those approved fees are curriculum and books, writing utensils, and even laptops and computers.
Ben says it's a positive impact the parents have the option of school choice, while Bryce is looking further down the road.
It is good to be able to.
I definitely see bad things in store for public schools if this trend continues, that we are trending towards privatizing education.
5,500 students will be able to sign up for the vouchers once a year for the next 4 years. One thing to note, the Benz family will not be able to sign up for those vouchers because their children are already enrolled in private schools. Live in Phoenix, McKenna Delgarno, Cronkite News.
2 weeks ago, Governor Doug Ducey signed a new bill extending the ESA voucher program. Joe Constantine takes a look at the pros and cons of the expansion.
Since Betsy DeVos was confirmed as the Secretary of Education back in February, there's been a debate over school choice. Here in Arizona, the legislature is expanding the parents' right to choose public, private, charter, or homeschool. But what's the cost?
A recent USA Today analysis of public education in all 50 states ranked Arizona near the bottom at number 43. It looked at college and career readiness, as well as preschool access. There are also more than 2,000 public teacher vacancies, according to the Arizona School Personnel Administrators Association. The Arizona Education Association is concerned those numbers could get worse with the expansion of the Empowerment Scholarship Account program.
Don't send those precious dollars to private school students whose families can already afford the tuition. Keep them in our public schools and bring in more money to where we can be successful.
But State Senator Debbie Lesko believes the program will actually save the state money.
ESAs are just another avenue of choice, and quite frankly, they're less costly to the state general fund than if a child moves to a charter school.
Lesko claims the ESA program gives parents more freedom when it comes to choosing what type of school is right for their student.
Not all children learn the same, and that's what's great about school choice, because parents can choose what is best for their child.
The Arizona Republic analysis of the current data shows a majority of the ESA students are coming from wealthier and better off school districts. Students leaving districts with A and B ratings receive over $16,000 on average, while schools with C and D ratings receive just under $7,000.
Students in the higher wealth districts are more likely to use the vouchers, even though the proponents who have been arguing for the universal vouchers say that it's about giving access and opportunity to low-income students.
The Children's Action Alliance reports that roughly 3,700 students currently use the ESA program. That number is expected to rise over 25,000 over the next 6 years. The bill also gives $4,800 to kids coming from public schools and will give kids from charter schools $5,600. In the broadcast center, Joe Constantine, Cronkite News.
Now, here's an @Cronkite News pick of the week, a favorite from the Cronkite News staff.
Just one out of the 18,000 B-24 bomber planes built during World War II still runs. That plane was in the Valley this weekend. Ivory Reiner gives us a tour of the aircraft through the eyes of its pilot, Greg Trebone.
This is the world's only surviving B-24 bomber. There were over 18,000 built. This particular airplane was given to the British government in World War II as part of our assistance to them in materiel, and saw combat with Britain in the India-China area. The current paint job you see here, which represents a combat veteran aircraft that flew over Germany in the 1944 time period. On the second day out, I met an individual whose father was a crew member on this aircraft, and he was wearing his father's uniform, and he placed in my hand, he asked me to hold my hand out like this, and he placed in that hand a little piece of sharp metal, and that piece of metal was a piece of an anti-aircraft shell that had went through his father's B-24 bomber and injured his father, and he got a Purple Heart because of that. We built over 500,000 aircraft, and the tens of thousands of men that flew these in combat, and I say men, but they really were young boys, 18, 19, 20 years old. 5,000 of them were shot down, and over 5,000 were also destroyed in other types of flying accidents. And if you think of 10 men or young boys per crew. So this story here is not about the airplanes. It's about the men and women who fought and did what they did in World War II.
That aircraft was among others from World War II, here with the Collings Foundation Wings of Freedom Tour.
Cronkite News tracks your likes, tweets, and shares from all our social sites to bring you this news special. At Cronkite News, our weekly refresh. Join the conversation so you choose the news. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and log on to cronkitenews.azpbs.org for top Arizona stories anytime.
Watch sneak previews of what's coming soon. Go to azpbs.org/previews today.